On the Total Football Podcast this week, we'll be looking back on the last 7 days of action, as well as wonder what's gone wrong with the Premier League. To do so, I'm Declan Hart, joined by Andrew Conway.
Hello.
And Matthias O'Flaherty.
Hello.
This week, I'd like to open the show with a rather simple question. By the time we record next week, the quarterfinal draw of the Champions League will have happened. So what draw would you love to see?
Don't want to see Barcelona Real Madrid yet.
I don't want to see it at all.
Well, that's if Chelsea can.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm biased.
In my heart, my head still thinks that Manchester United will beat Sevilla.
Okay.
So there'll be United in there. But then Sevilla, United are still so bad that Sevilla could still do them. Who else is there then? I'm trying to think.
There's Real Madrid, Juventus, Liverpool, Man City, and then obviously we don't quite know who's through this week.
Liverpool, Juventus maybe, because they really hate each other. Well, Juventus hate Liverpool.
Liverpool, Real Madrid could be interesting.
Yeah.
They've had a few classic ties the last 15 years.
Klopp has Real Madrid as well in his pocket.
Yeah, the Liverpool tie, I'd love to see those. Liverpool-Chelsea, Get all the old hits back together.
Yeah, but that Chelsea team doesn't exist anymore.
No.
The animosity isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
No. Same with the Liverpool side. And Liverpool are better than Chelsea and have had the beating of Chelsea for a while now.
Yeah, but they have had some cracking games. They have.
They've as more recent Champions League rivalries go, theirs is as big as anything.
Yeah.
Man United, Real Madrid as well was kind of a glamour tie 20 years ago.
Yeah, but now it would be a dour.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be. Well, it would be dour because Mourinho's involved.
I mean, I'd almost say get Juventus and Man United in the same tie so we can see some good football in the other three.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be that hard.
Man City, Barcelona.
Right, that might be a little critical of Juventus.
Man City against Barcelona.
That would be...
It would be unfortunate, that type, because it would be, quite, at the moment, two of the most informed sides in Europe playing each other at an early stage in the tournament. There's still... that would be a better semi-final / final.
Yeah,
potentially.
maybe.
Liverpool-Barcelona might be a very good game.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think Liverpool against pretty much any team.
Okay, Liverpool should be
United.
Well,
Juventus.
If we look at it, there's not going to be... Who's in the quarterfinals now? There's potentially the ones that are left to qualify and the teams that are already there. There's no real dead weights left.
Yeah,
possibly
like even
the
Shakhtar, Roma.
Well, Shakhtar and Roma, but that's the surprise package.
True.
Round where
this
team could go far.
Like they're maybe not as good as the other 7 teams in the Champions League, but they'd still be quite good.
They'd give a game.
They'd give a game to most of those teams left.
Well, yeah,
right.
Whoever got whoever of the other 7 drew.
Yeah, it would be a fortunate
try. Would be the favourites,
which would be Real Madrid because they always get lucky.
Most likely Real Madrid will be in the semi-finals. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But my presumption at this point is Real Madrid playing Juventus, Barcelona against Liverpool, Man United against Shakhtar.
You think Shakhtar will do Roma?
Yeah, I think so. Just because they had the upper hand in the first leg.
So who does that give us for the last time?
And then who's left?
Bayern
against who will go through. So Bayern are the understated team in this, who have
they've just kind of been forgotten.
They've been forgotten, and they're probably at least going to get to a semi-final.
I mean, they're probably the 3rd best team in the competition behind Barca and City. For my money,
them ahead of Barcelona.
For my money,
I would put them ahead of Barcelona.
Barcelona are unbeaten domestically.
Barcelona are the best team in the world right now. They are by far the best team in the world right now.
I think Messi's the best player in the world right now.
Barcelona dominated Malaga for 90 minutes this weekend. Messi wasn't even in the squad.
Malaga are bottom of the league.
They are bottom of the league, but Malaga, this is a Malaga team that has been challenging for European places in recent seasons. Now they've hit a bad.
Yeah, but they ran out
bottom.
Of money.
They basically
the bottom for that other club.
They are
Sunderland.
But
they are Spanish Sunderland.
They are, yeah. But at the same time, that Barcelona side that played, Barcelona's an aging side. They're at the end they're on their downward spiral for a lot of the players there because PK's even Jordi Alba's probably at his peak / going down now, and obviously Busquets is getting on, and Messi is older. Iniesta is obviously gone at this point, or he's injured for the foreseeable future. That team is on the way down, but that Barcelona team is the new players they've been bringing through. Like Dembele is just technically superb. He is very lightweight. Like if he put on a few kilos, like a fair few kilos, bulked up a bit, was a bit stronger on the ball when he had it, he would be up there, one of the best players in the world, I'd say right now. But technically speaking, his feet are quicker than Neymar's. He's more skillful than Neymar.
Yeah.
And he's in that team. The assist he made at the weekend for Coutinho's backheel goal, which is pretty special, and Coutinho had a bad game as well. He still is growing into that side. But he, very similar to the Rashford goal, which I know we're going to come to when United played Liverpool.
Yeah.
Where he cut in and then shot. But what in the case of Dembele, he cut in and crossed for the tap-in / backheel for Coutinho. But what Ronaldo or Rashford do is they hit the ball with the back of their heel. What Dembele did was he took the stud, the furthest back stud on his heel, and he stepped on the precise stitching of the football to kill the football dead. So he had an extra second to pinpoint the pass. That is the difference between someone like Marcus Rashford and someone like Dembele.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea beat them on Wednesday night.
I don't think Chelsea will beat them on Wednesday night.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think they'll beat them either, but I'd still love to see it happen. This Chelsea team, they're Jekyll and Hyde at the moment, but they still have the potential to beat any team on their day. They do have the players in the squad.
They don't have a centre forward.
I mean,
did you see that Olivier Giroud? He cannot score.
Yes, yeah.
Olivier Giroud had the same expected goals as Huddersfield this weekend.
Yeah,
but both of them scored 0 goals.
I think that's diverting from the point that Chelsea, as they showed the last leg against Barcelona, they don't always need a striker to score. And I think Barcelona, because they're such a good team, are almost a team that Chelsea are better off without a striker for. True. And I know Eden Hazard, I've complained about it before, Eden Hazard as a false nine generally doesn't work. But against Barcelona, it can.
I don't know about that. Away from home at the new camp.
I'm not sure. I think Morata might be brought back into the side for
Someone
this.
has to, because Eden Hazard does not have the pace to play as a lone striker running at that team.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
It's ridiculous having him do that. But then again, neither does Morata, neither does Giroud. And what are they going to do? Like, this is the thing. Stamford Bridge is a lot smaller area than the new camp. They cannot play that compact game. It's been proven before that they can't do it. Chelsea did it once in their history, and they fluked it. And if it was not for Messi had not been able to take penalties, that would have never. You wouldn't even remember that Chelsea.
But if any team is going to fluke it again,
yeah, but it's not this Chelsea team, because that Chelsea team had stuff going for it and had experience on this. This Chelsea team is a team that is very, very slowly they put their foot on the brakes and they're coming to a nice, gentle stop before the end of the season. And they'll probably, without being good in any way, they're going to finish 5th place, because the team in 6th is 100 times worse than them, and the team in 4th is not, just a bit better than them, that they can't catch them.
Well, to come into the news, Tottenham played Bournemouth, they won 4-1, but the big news out of that match is that Harry Kane might miss the rest of the season. And as you've said, Tottenham without Harry Kane is not nearly as good as they can be.
I mean,
there's a glimmer of hope there for Chelsea.
Yeah, at the same time, Loriente hasn't done too well at Spurs so far, but he's not bad.
But he's not even getting into squads.
No, exactly. He's not a bad backup either. I think he will come good. And if you look last year, they were chasing Chelsea for the title. Harry Kane got injured for almost the entire end of the season. He came back for a couple of games at the end there, just to score
9 goals.
Yeah, to score as many goals as possible. But they won every game he was missing for. I think it was 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, but in fairness to Spurs, at that point they'd already Spurs up the season, where they that was it. The Chelsea had won the league. Chelsea weren't going to drop enough points for Spurs to ever catch them at that point. So it was like Spurs were playing exhibition matches. It's not the same as now. Saying that, Spurs are going to set up in a different way now. They have all the focus on the league. They don't have any distractions for European or Cup football. Really.
They're still in the FA Cup.
They're still in the FA Cup, but the way Pochettino treats the FA Cup, I wouldn't see them being in the FA Cup for more than 2 more rounds unless something.
Well, they have a quarter-final this week against Swansea.
Yeah, so they have an easy draw at the quarter-final stage, easy so to speak. Well, Carvajal is a good manager, and he seems to be getting that Swansea team back playing to some extent. They're out of the relegation zone.
Yeah,
that's as
they're without the Ayew brothers though.
They are, but I don't think Swansea don't care about the FA Cup, so they're going to go in. They don't care. They're going to play reserve players. Great, we get to have one of the suspensions over with.
Yeah,
that's how they're going to view this match. And Spurs are probably going to go in and okay, let's figure out how we're going to play without Harry Kane. And I don't think Llorente is going to come into the squad. I think Son is going to be played as a kind of a false nine running, and then you're just going to have an extra man in midfield, and they're going to try and overwhelm teams like they did at kind of the beginning of last season when they had their good run of form then, and a bit during this season before they kind of became the kind of lumbering juggernaut they are now, and they win in games through sheer pummeling.
I mean, they're still a very good side without Harry Kane, you know?
They're blunt.
They're a little blunt, but they still have a lot of players who can score goals. I mean, Eriksen can score from pretty much anywhere on the pitch.
When's the last time?
Okay, he's
got a consistent run.
Yeah.
Like, they're not goals. Like, Eriksen isn't a 15 goal a season player. Son is the closest ones they have to that. And how many does he have this season? I think he's in double figures.
Yeah.
But, you know...
He's not someone you need as a first striker. He's not someone you rely on to get you through games.
But part of that is because of just how much of the shots Harry Kane monopolises.
Yeah.
You know, he takes a lot of the chances. Without him,
they're entirely reliant on him.
Yeah, but that's because in the same way that Ronaldo takes most of the shots at Madrid, that's why he scores most of the goals.
Yeah, but then when we saw when Ronaldo wasn't scoring, Real Madrid dipped in form.
But that's because Ronaldo was still on the pitch taking the shots, ending the chances. You know, whereas now Tottenham's chances won't end with Harry Kane. They'll end with Son. He'll get more opportunities to score. They'll end with Eriksen. He'll get more opportunities.
Of course.
Like, I expect their goals to go up. And I do agree, obviously, they're not going to replace the amount of goals Harry Kane scores. But it won't be as big a loss as some people might think it is.
I take your point, and it is fair enough, and it will give a greater opportunity to more players in that Tottenham side to step forward and score some goals and get on the end of some of the chances they create. But the problem, and I know they did it yesterday, they won 4-1 when they were losing. Were they losing at the time?
Yeah, they were losing. Yeah.
They were losing 1-0 at the time when Kane went off.
I think he actually scored a goal when he went off. Am I right in saying that?
He scored. Sure.
I've completely blanked on it now. I remember watching the beginning of that match, and Bournemouth were just unstoppable. They were taking Spurs apart. Davison Sanchez was left on his backside twice, including the goal. Bournemouth were very good, and they just completely ran out of steam. It's like as if they came out too fast and weren't able to keep it sustained. And then Spurs kind of gradually grew into it, and then by the end, kind of were throttling them over the line. That's how they got to 4-1. But you know, the problem with Spurs is you're talking about Real Madrid, and when Ronaldo's injured or out, maybe it gives opportunities to other players to come in and actually do something who are talented. Spurs don't have clinical finishers at all. You speak of Llorente, who isn't even getting into squads at the moment. If he goes back, he was never a prolific goal scorer at the peak of his career. He was a kind of link player. But there's nobody else in that squad that has a finishing tendency to them. Son is closest to it.
Yeah.
And as we said, you can't be relying on him for everything. So who's the goals come in? You know, people will chip in here and there, but Lamella's not a goal scorer. Eriksen's not a goal scorer. Tyre's not a goal. You're quickly running out of players in the team, like Sissoko, Dembele. These players play so deep in that Spurs side at the moment that Kane is so far ahead of everyone else. They all they work the game. They control midfield. They press on the midfield and the defense of the opposition team, and then Kane finds space and scores. That's how they work.
Dele Alli, who got 2 of the goals after Kane went off.
Yeah, there is an argument that maybe just in time for the World Cup, he can get into form, and England be very pleased with that. So maybe Dele Alli.
But Chelsea play Tottenham on the 1st of April after the international break. That'll be the
decider for 4th place, I'd imagine. Well, it'll be
decider,
to keep it going.
Yeah, Tottenham will need to drop points for Chelsea to. I mean,
if Tottenham draw that match,
they should be
still. Yeah, it's probably
that's a must-win game
for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea, that's properly must-win at this point. It's not even a case of we'll see once we get to it. It's like Atletico's game with Barcelona. We were calling it, the decider for La Liga. Atletico needed a win. They didn't. Barcelona should have it sewn up. Yeah. It's pretty much the same with Chelsea in the top 4.
The thing is, though, they do also play Liverpool later in the season, but it could be gone by then.
It will be.
And Liverpool as well don't look like they'll be in danger of dropping out.
Yeah.
They're not the team that Chelsea need to take points off.
Yeah.
While it may
they are currently closer to Liverpool, but I see Liverpool getting more points between now and the end of the season than Tottenham.
Their run is easier.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
They've played all their big matches now.
Yeah, and of course you mentioned it earlier. Liverpool were at Old Trafford at the weekend.
Yeah,
Marcus Rashford. First league start in the year, I think.
Yeah, since January.
Yeah,
and replaced Pogba on the side.
As Sky Sports News are pushing all weekend after the match, they were putting up graphics comparing the England strikers. This was before Kane got injured, of course.
Yeah.
Kane, I think, 27 goals or something like that, or 28 goals. He's in that margin.
Yeah.
And then it comes to Vardy, I think it's 11 goals is the next in 28 games.
Scored a great goal the weekend.
He did.
Very good. Yeah.
Very good goal, although I think it's been overrated, and I know we'll come to that in a while. And then the third player they listed was Marcus Rashford, who has 4 goals in 28 games. 2 in this match. When you look at him, that it's cold hard stats. Now, Sky Sports are bigging it up as in, these are England's great hopes for the World Cup. But I think that's a damning statistic that they just stumbled upon. That even, I know you're saying he hasn't started, but he's played a lot.
Yeah, he's come on as a sub a lot.
28 matches. When you're playing for Manchester United, when 9 times out of 10 you're playing against a weaker side, and you're expected to be scoring goals, and you're getting a lot of chances. And even as a player, especially like Rashford, who is quick, has pace, has good stamina, and is thrown on at the 70 plus minutes against a team that's been run ragged, you'd presume.
Was there an assist stat to go with that?
No, but he's still there. The assists are nowhere. Like, there's no English player with good assists this season.
Yeah.
Outside of Sterling, who has a considerable proportion of them. But assist rankings for English players this season have been poor.
Yeah.
Where traditionally, players, you go through them, like Drinkwater had a very good break there when he was at Leicester, or even Wilshere in years gone by. And they've just dried up entirely, and maybe another handful between them.
Yeah.
It's not good if these are going to be your starting midfielders, which is another problem we're going to come to, I suppose, in the future. England.
But
what did you think of
back to the match? Yeah,
the match itself?
I mean, I do think that it's a bit of a smash and grab, but it's one that Liverpool should have seen coming a long way. I mean, I just think it's pretty damning to concede 2 goals in the first 21 minutes.
Yeah,
the second
like
one
Mourinho clearly spotted a weakness.
I mean, it's against a Mourinho team. You know that whatever else in a big game, Mourinho is going to, for some parts of it, defend deep.
Yeah.
I won't go the whole hog and say he's going to park the bus completely, because I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's entirely what he did.
Yeah.
But I think if you give him an opportunity like that, conceding 2 goals early on, he'd be mad not to.
Yeah.
I think especially against a team like Liverpool, who have had trouble breaking down packed defences.
Yeah, like there's been this whole talk about the Fab 3 and all this, but I don't remember David De Gea making any save.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I think what hurt Liverpool most than anything, because Liverpool were the better side, but of course it doesn't matter being the better side.
But like they weren't even like I wouldn't.
They
even
were
say
the better side. They had more of the ball. They had more chances.
But I don't think them having more of the ball, like what Mourinho says, like if you have the ball, you have fear.
Yeah, and he's right, and that's why
I think Liverpool were very poor.
Well,
and that's why they lost. Like they had no way of getting through.
The 2 goals at Manchester. Can we just talk about the 2 goals? They're good. Both are good pinpoint finishes by Rashford. First goal,
got to get a bit lucky on the second goal.
Yeah, well, we'll come to it. The first goal, it came from a Liverpool corner initially. So Liverpool had a corner. It goes to Virgil van Dijk, or I think it's...
No, it was one that went straight out.
Yeah, sorry.
Went
so
straight
that
out
was the second one then I'm coming to. So corner came in, went straight out of play, goal kick for David De Gea. David De Gea launches it forward. Lukaku wins a header
on Lovren,
and that kind of pulls Lovren out of position.
Yeah.
And then the players are there, and the ball kind of luckily rolls through to Rashford.
Yeah, Rashford. He anticipates it before Alexander Arnold does. Who was poor, and it's harsh to kind of single out Alexander Arnold because he is a youngster. But he was.
If you're in the team, you're in the team.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're starting against Man United, you've got to be good enough.
Joe Gomez, he didn't make mistakes like that.
Yeah, I was wondering why he didn't play. There's
things to do with positioning.
I don't think.
On the team.
I think generally Gomez is considered a more attacking fullback.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to blame any player on that Liverpool side for the performance. Karius might have been a suspect for the second goal, which I know we'll speak about.
Well, I think the second goal he's just unfortunate.
Yeah,
he is about to save and it's blocked.
I think Liverpool were unfortunate on both goals because, like you said, maybe Rashford anticipated it, but the positioning, the way it was, Arnold was in the right place for the follow up of that header from the goal kick, but he couldn't have anticipated.
He was just too slow.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's the way it went is Lukaku was so clumsy. He was completely right in the way he won it, but he was so clumsy in the way he won the ball from Lukaku, from the header kind of knockdown.
Rashford.
No, Lukaku winning the goal kick and then Lukaku winning it.
Yeah.
And it kind of bounced. The way it went is traditionally if you're a player facing back, so it was a long ball, Lukaku's facing his own goalkeeper. He's not facing Liverpool's goalkeeper. And he jumps and they clash in the air and Lukaku comes out the victor and wins it. And somehow manages, while heading it back towards his own goal, manages to knock it back towards Rashford.
No, but he's done this before.
Liverpool. He has, but it was very clumsy, and I don't think there was any mistakes made by any player. That I think it was down to a bit of good fortune, and a good finish from Rashford. The second goal was complete luck because of the way blocks went in, but at the same time, it was the same long ball launched.
It was well played to get into the position, and Rashford just gets fortunate with the finish, which happens.
Yeah, but I feel part of it is because of Liverpool's desire to play such an open game. They're ready straight away when Lovren and Lukaku are both going up for that ball. They're completely fully expecting it to go back into midfield. Yeah. They're expecting to be pressing on the midfielders. Yeah.
They're already gone.
Exactly. Yeah. They're half a step too quick.
Yeah.
True. They've bitten down, and I think that is what Mourinho spotted. Yeah. You mentioned that he spotted something. I think that's if
probably
anything
why he started Rashford and not a slower player.
I'd imagine so.
Further up the field, like starting Matt further up the field rather than where he did start him.
Yeah. And I mean, like, with all that said about Liverpool being the better team, that's kind of ignoring the fact that Mata should have definitely scored a third.
The bicycle kick.
He had time to take it down.
Technique on the bicycle kick as well.
No, but I mean, Man United could have been away with it completely. Yeah. And I think Liverpool, they want to play football. Klopp's made that abundantly clear in multiple interviews.
Yeah.
But there are limits. You should, especially against a Mourinho team, you shouldn't give them easy goals, easy chances, because they will love that. They love not having to have to create themselves because they're not very good at it for the most part.
They're searching for these openings.
Exactly, because Liverpool's defence really has shored up recently. And I think United would have been hard pressed to do much about it if Liverpool had been a little more patient, not being straight away trying to turn everything into their game, but kind of slow down a little bit more. Yeah. And I know they were blunted then because United could afford to sit all the way back with all their men back, at home. Yeah. Which I don't think, even Mourinho, I don't think would have completely shut up shop at home for 90 minutes.
If they weren't winning 2-0.
Yeah, exactly. Because, the fans are happy. You're winning 2-0. It's acceptable.
I think poor finishing really hurt Liverpool as well.
It did,
We're talking about delivery from that corner initially that led to the first goal, but then there was other corners as well in the first half. Van Dijk had a few chances.
There was just one major chance for Van Dijk, and he put it wide. Yeah, that was the only chance I remember Liverpool having.
Well, no, they were
other than just long range shots.
Yeah, but there were attempts to set plays and stuff though. They were creating things. It just the shooting boots weren't there. There was a few incidents where there could have been a couple of penalties.
Like I thought they were snatching at chances.
Yeah, maybe it's poor finish. Like you said, Salah had that chance right at the death, and he missed it. Lost the ball.
Yeah, but I think that's because he snatched at it. Like because he was like, "Oh, this is the closest thing to a chance that he's had."
Yeah, and that's what happened really. But like Liverpool could be seen to be hard done by. Like Eric Bailly did score an amazing own goal.
Yeah, we have to bring that up because like it's his return from injury, his first start since like November. Played very well.
Fantastic game, yeah.
But that own goal was incredible.
That match, I don't know if that Manchester United defence played that well. Valencia was caught out multiple times that match. For the first time in a long time, he was shown that he's not a right back. Like,
no, he's not.
For all the praise for
he's
Ashley
been poor
Young,
the last few months.
But Ashley Young's got huge praise in that match for keeping Salah in his pocket, which I don't agree with at all. I think it came.
It's just because Salah didn't do anything that the person that's perceived to be marking him will get praised.
Yeah, but that's not what happened. Like he was double marked for the whole match. Like McTominay would come in deep and cover the space, so he couldn't cut inside. So, I think it's a misreading of the match, but Valencia was caught out multiple times, ball played behind him, and the amount of crosses that came in from that wing.
But they never amounted to anything.
No, they didn't, and that was kind of because there was enough bodies between the Liverpool players and the goal that it never could get a chance or get a shot away.
I also feel that United did kind of figure out Liverpool's attacking, all of their attacking players a little bit. Because Salah, like you said, they had two people, stopping him cutting in. That's how to deal with him. Because, he's very like Arjen Robben. That's, I don't want to call him a one-trick pony. Salah's got more to him than, having to cut in all the time.
Having that one trick, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
If he's amazing.
But Salah's isn't up to that level,
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. As soon as United had two people there, he was finding it very hard to get much going. Yeah. Firmino is very much a player that plays off the rest of that attacking quartet. I don't want to say he's any worse than them, because, you know, he can be very good in that combination, but I think he really does need other players to get something started so he can find that bit of space. And I think Mane as well, you know, tends to thrive a bit on attention being diverted to Salah, you know, and I think he's been in poor form recently.
Yeah, I've not been impressed by him lately.
No, he hasn't had a good season. Like, he came back from injury and was a bit underwhelming, and then all the attention that he might have been getting last season kind of transferred to Salah. I don't think he's recovered from that kind of. He's no longer the number one finisher or attacker in the team. It just brings up the point that, like, Liverpool, they are missing just one player. That player wasn't Coutinho, I don't think. They're missing something. Yeah,
their midfield just was underwhelming yesterday or Saturday.
It's like I think, like, if Liverpool had someone like Paul Pogba, I think that could be an electrifying type of presence. And maybe like Naby Keita. I've watched RB Leipzig play like in the Europa League last week. Like, Keita is very good. Yeah, very, very.
He's a good signing.
But he's got leadership and charisma, charging his team, bringing them to the forefront. And, you know, maybe that could be it for next season. Like, this season is a write-off. Everyone's agreed. Like, Man City have won the league. Yeah. So, like, we say that match was important for second place, and it probably will give Manchester United second place.
Yeah, it seems like Man United has kind of secured top 4 at this point.
Oh, they're definitely
top 4 for sure.
Yeah.
But maybe second place, we'll see that United do have a tougher run in than a lot of.
Yeah, they have Man City coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you know, they're liable to go on runs of.
Oh, they do have Arsenal in a couple of weeks, so
they do. But you know, Arsenal, you never know with Arsenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all kind of academic at this point. It doesn't really matter who finished second, third, or fourth.
Yeah,
as long as they're in that.
Like, no one's going to remember that in 5 years' time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, what matters now is pinpointing the weaknesses, and I agree with you. Liverpool are only a player or two away from it. You know, I think
Karius is in form now.
Yeah, Karius, you know, much big. He's done a lot better than Mignolet was doing.
Yeah. Van Dijk is an excellent signing. You know, like, they're bringing through youth, and at fullbacks in other positions, Robertson's a fantastic young player.
Yeah, Robertson's one of the, like, low key kind of been one of the best signings of the season.
You know, absolutely. They just have to kind of maybe reduce the importance of players like Jordan Henderson and
or even just upgrading quality, because Jordan Henderson's an okay player, but he's not
Liverpool captain. But that's he can't be starting every single match at top level. He is not. He's not Paul Pogba. He's not Nemanja Matic.
He's not Michael Carrick.
No,
you know, that's the player they want him to be. That's not who he is. And I mean, I really feel that that's the last thing Liverpool need to turn into, you know, what they've looked like they could be for the last little while.
Yeah,
to challenge.
It'll be next season before we see it, though.
Yeah. And then finally in the news, just PSG, Real Madrid. PSG just so underwhelming again.
They tried to do everything they could to upset Real Madrid. Apparently they had fans, ultras outside the hotel the night before. They refused
police escort
to Real Madrid. They were trying to intimidate them, and then what do? They lose their head. They get a player sent off. They're fouling. They're missing chances galore. Kylian Mbappe is trying to drag the whole squad with him.
Yeah.
You know, Julian Draxler does the same when he comes on, tries to do it.
He's brought on so late in the game as well.
Honestly,
did you see the pass chart between the front three in each match? They did this pass chart of like how many times Cavani passed to Mbappe and how many times Mbappe passed it back for all the front three.
Yeah.
And Cavani didn't pass to either of the other two strikers in either of the matches. Not once.
It's a kind of damnation on the whole on the whole structure, because Unai Emery is a team manager. He is very focused on the collective.
He's out the door in the summer.
Well, yeah, he is. It's like his ideas haven't reached any of them, or maybe he hasn't even tried because it's not the job.
Yeah, quite simply, he's here. The players are on the pitch, and there's a Neymar between them that he can't get to.
Yeah.
Is Zidane what PSG need?
No. I do not. It'll be a manager who's after maybe trying to prove themselves at a very high level. Who, you know, a second string manager, like maybe a Thomas Tuchel, maybe a manager who's managed the Champions League, maybe someone like George Jesus at Benfica, maybe someone like that, who's been at a second string level for so long now that they want to move up to the next, you know, the big boys in Europe. But I cannot see a top grade manager going there.
It's not a job for any manager who wants to make a name for themselves, even, because I mean,
probably not.
Like the problem,
Zidane.
No, not Zidane. I know Zidane would not do a good job.
Why not?
I wouldn't be surprised if Zidane, if he gets sacked, just moves back up to the Real Madrid.
See, that's what I think. I don't think Zidane will take other managerial jobs, but why would he not be the perfect fit for PSG?
Because they might as well make Neymar player manager there.
And he's from Marseille.
That too.
Well, okay, I didn't figure that in.
That's probably the bigger one.
But
no,
we've
but
seen
right now,
Zidane gets the players' respect. That's what they need.
He gets Real Madrid players' respect.
Yeah.
You can't say for sure it'll transfer over.
He's Zidane.
Like, yeah,
he's
okay.
The French team, like they idolise him.
Yeah.
It probably would, but at the same time, like the problem with PSG is, like you said, Unai Emery's a team manager. They're not a team. Yeah. They never have been a team.
No, but Neymar's never going to respect Unai Emery.
He's never going to want to respect anybody.
Yeah.
No, he's never going to respect any manager.
He respected Luis Enrique. Or, it was just Messi.
No, he respected Messi.
Yeah.
You know, he was willing to play second fiddle to the best in the world.
Until the point where he didn't want to be anymore, and that's where we are. We're at a stage now where Neymar did all the right things when he went to Barcelona the first time. He played like, Messi's the greatest player in the world. I'm here to learn. I'm here to contribute to... he was a team player. And then gradually, as, his ego has grown and his importance to, say, the Brazilian national team or to his own brand has just grown astronomical. He's realised, like, I want all these things that I said I didn't want earlier in my career. And that's why he went to Paris, and that's why he's getting all the money in Paris. But you cannot do... It's not an individual sport. It's not tennis. It's not golf. You can't just take it on yourself and then you'll win everything. It's a team sport. You cannot win without your teammates, without 18 or 20 or whatever is in your squad, because that's what it requires. Anyone managing... I'm managing PSG next season. I'll win the league in France.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. It matters that you play one match, probably 1 to 2 matches a season that actually matter. And theirs were against Real Madrid this season, and they were nowhere to be seen. The only players that came out with any shred of dignity from those matches were maybe Areola, although he made a few kind of questionable decisions. Kylian Mbappe, who continues to be fantastic and a very exciting player, and he used to work hard to the 90th minute in both legs, even though they're both lost.
Yeah.
Apart from that, maybe,
possibly Rabiot
in the first leg, and then maybe he kind of gave it in the second. Chucked it in. There's nobody there that actually did. Like Dani Alves was a disgrace in the second leg.
Nutmeg from, was it Asensio?
Yes.
For the first goal. Yeah. Oh, it was glorious.
It wasn't even. He gave away probably 2 goals in that match.
Yeah,
from his mistakes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even that. He was trying to do stuff which was selfish to his teammates. He wasn't doing what was best for his team. He was trying to do what was best for him to recover like some dignity from the mistakes he made.
Yeah. And that's the reason that no manager will ever be able to properly enforce themselves in PSG. Because first of all, Neymar's untouchable. Yeah. There's stories of him having a 3-day birthday party for his sister. I think he skipped training. He invited the manager.
He missed a cup match.
He missed a cup match. I mean, he's invited the manager to this too. What can the manager do? He can't say, Neymar, stop it, I want to see you at training, I want to see you playing.
That's his boss. Like,
exactly. It's not his boss though in real terms.
Neymar is the boss.
Exactly. Neymar's in charge there. So you can't tell Neymar when to stop. Does that mean, where does that line stop? Can you tell Verratti what to do? Verratti can just as well go and say, hey, I'm off to Barcelona, I'm not taking this, Neymar's doing what he likes. And then, PSG, the hierarchy will come down and say, you can't be saying this to Verratti. He's too important to the team. Cavani, he's too important to the team. Mbappe, he's too important to the team. Who are you left with? You're left with being able to boss around the youth players,
Yeah. And then some of them will be like, well, I'm not going to play, so I'm leaving the club.
Exactly. I mean, no manager worth his salt will take over there unless he gets assurances he'll be put ahead of Neymar. And no manager, save possibly Mourinho or Guardiola, will be given that sort of assurance.
Yeah. Correct.
So, other than those two, there's no big name manager going to PSG.
Yeah, and so, like the talk of Pochettino, because he used to play, like I'm sure he loves the club and everything, like because he used to play for them. It would be like tremendous mistake in his
career suicide.
To go to PSG, because like it's not going to benefit him at all. No. He's not going to be able to like stamp his style of football onto the team. It'll just be the same old a collection of individuals rather than a team. The same goes like you said. You're right. Only maybe Mourinho and Guardiola have the cult of personality, have the clout in the game enough to maybe do that. But they're not going to go there unless they're crazy. Like Mourinho could, but
Like,
You
see
know,
Mourinho going there eventually.
But why?
the same reason if he
To
falls out
add
of
to his
Manchester
CV.
United or anything like that,
Yeah.
it could happen. But
I don't see it as anything other than a last job for Mourinho because, first of all, it's such a difficult one, and second of all, he doesn't have to prove anything anymore.
True,
You know,
true.
He's been there, he's done that. He went to England, won titles, Italy won titles, Spain won a title.
But then he can just add France to that list. And I think he is
I
going
think
to do
France-
that part in his
I
career.
think he will at some point later
He
down
might.
the line, but not at this point. Why would he even try to get into that? Like,
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he'll come in this summer.
I mean, no, maybe he will in the future, but France
Yeah.
isn't the same level as those three countries. You know,
Yeah,
Germany even isn't. You know, I would say that the league in Germany isn't and hasn't ever been as prestigious. You know, Bayern are a big team.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, any of the other, and like Bayern wouldn't hire him. And that's a different discussion. I shouldn't be getting
well, they
into
wouldn't hire him
Yeah.
in this state. They might maybe in 10 years. You don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's a different discussion.
And that will do us for the news. Join us after the break where we'll wonder where the excitement has gone in the Premier League. Welcome back. We're going to do our topic of the show now, and we're coming into what Sir Alex Ferguson used to always call squeaky bum time, where champions showed what they were made of, ground out results to ensure that they got over the line. Yet this season, as we get into the final few games, it seems that there is nothing to play for. Man City are certain champions. The top four looks fairly set in stone, though Chelsea might be able to get something back. The bottom three seems to have at least two teams certain to go down. So where has all the excitement gone?
It's a funny little situation we're in because if you can recall the 90s or the early 2000s, we had similar conversations that we had. No team can possibly win the league outside of, at the time, Manchester United and then whoever was the challenger, Blackburn, and then Newcastle, and then Arsenal.
Yeah.
No one else was actually in the conversation to even challenge for the league. And that continued right up until when Chelsea joined that into a top three kind of situation in the mid-2000s, and Liverpool maybe as well further on for a few years after that. And we had a top four until Man City joined and then became kind of a top five. There was never any opportunity for any other teams outside of those five teams at the most, at its largest, to win the league. So for the majority of the league, there was nothing to play for after a certain amount of time. Like, this is before there were so many Europa League / UEFA Cup places, where there was no chance of winning any of the cup competitions, and a lot of teams would end up petering out in the middle of the season. Like, the amount of times you'd look at a Charlton Athletic finishing consecutively 7th or 10th, year after year after year, or Southampton back in the day, or Aston Villa back in the day, and they're never really doing anything. Newcastle as well for a considerable period were like that. They weren't doing anything. They were finishing the league and that was it. Now we're in a different stage where tables have been equalised. Most of the teams in Premier League are playing on equal footing now. There is no big gap between what a Newcastle United can do and what who's another team in the league that of similar comparability. Southampton can do. When traditionally Newcastle is a much bigger club than Southampton. There's a huge city in the north of England, one club city, the main sport being football, compared to a provincial town in Southampton in the south, where there's a huge number of clubs in the area. And now they're on equal footing, and they're all kind of competing for the same players, playing decent styles of football, not playing, outrageously bad football or poor tactics or old school English football. And basically the bottom 12 teams in the Premier League are nearly all identical.
Yeah.
And a result of them being on a level playing field, there is no kind of conjecture in there anymore. There is no, okay, these are the worst teams, they're gone, or they're going to compete for relegation.
Yeah.
And then they have the teams at the top, and then the teams in the middle don't do anything. Now there's 12 teams who are all of similar level, and now we can't really pick between them, and it's kind of boring because we don't have contrasting styles, and we don't have one team killing another team or one team triumphing heavily over another team, or drama in there. We just have homogeny.
Yeah, I'd agree with most of what you said. I think it's worth pointing out as well that the two teams that sort of joined that big club, City and Chelsea, both fueled by outside money, Yeah. At the level the money's at in the Premier League now, that's not going to happen again. No. There's no entity on earth rich enough to jump another step. There's no conglomerate big enough to
It
match
would only be
Qatar for
another
money,
exact same situation,
You know,
another country or another, oligarch level.
Yeah,
fortune.
exactly. And I mean, that's what it's going to take for somebody to challenge the top. And again, under that, you're right. And I feel like the biggest damage done by that sort of big block in the middle, or at the bottom now, is the fact that there's no sense of progression for teams. Mm-hmm. There used to be teams, give me Stoke, for example. Stoke came up, first season or two they're trying to avoid relegation.
And then they're stable.
And then they're trying to get mid-table. And then they're trying to, aim for Europe. Yeah. And then they're back down again and they're trying to avoid relegation. And this year it looks like they will be relegated. That's there were 3 or 4 different stages for them to aim at. Now, there's so many big teams that the European places are sewn up.
Yeah.
And God forbid it does fall out of the top. I think it can't. The worst it can get down to is 7th. Mm-hmm. 7th, that's one place for the other 13, 14 teams in the league, because Arsenal upwards are going to take the other European places. So there's not even the chance to see your team in continental competition. What have Leicester fans got to look forward to for the rest of the season? Because they're safe from relegation. They're not going to reach, they can pass out Burnley. That's it. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to reach Arsenal. They're not going to get in the Europa. They might get in the Europa League by beating Burnley.
Or
that's
the cup,
the one thing. Or the cup. That's all they have to look forward to. It's not very exciting. No. And as well, because of the differences in the playing squad now than they used to be. The English league used to be a lot more English, and I don't want to sound, too xenophobic when I say this, but it does reduce your attachment to a club. Yeah. As a Chelsea fan, I'm not English, but seeing John Terry, at Chelsea,
Captain Leader Legend.
Exactly, it's a little bit different than seeing the current captain Gary Cahill, who's still English,
he's not from the club.
He's not from the club,
area, He doesn't know.
And even Gary Cahill, he's a better example of that than most captains at most of the clubs. There's a lot of the time with more money in the game, it feels less and less like they're playing to enjoy football and more like it's a job.
Yeah.
And they feel like it's a job. They're working when they're out there. It feels like a chore to watch. When was the last time you saw somebody score a brilliant goal and go absolutely spastic on the sideline celebrating it?
It's been some time, I'd say.
Yeah, and I feel that contrasted with Italy, where the passing of Davide Astore. It's obviously a tragedy.
Yes.
But if you see how much passion there was around Fiorentina, and they kicked the ball out in the 13th minute and just applauded for 60 seconds because that was his number. Mm-hmm. They scored the goal. It was obviously, credited to him. At the end of the game, they're going around crying. That was real. That was authentic.
Heartfelt, yeah.
It was heartfelt. Yeah. You don't see much of that anymore.
Certainly not in the Premier League.
Exactly. And the derbies, they've been over-commercialised. Sky Sports with Red Monday and...
Rivalry weekend,
Merseyside Monday, all of these. It feels forced.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels pushed on you. It used to be like the big games, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, Arsenal, was where the best football would be.
Yeah.
Now, it's where it's the same. It's defensive. It's one big team attacking another and the other defending it. Yeah. And that's every game, every big team versus a small team game. And you have said this before in the podcast. It's horrible to watch a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Arsene Wenger has spoken about this recently as well. He was saying how most of the time it's a 70% team against a 30% team, talking about possession.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like every match has kind of become that.
Yeah, and every
There's
match...
no variation.
Yeah, they all feel kind of the same. Whereas it used to be, if you were playing Stoke were a completely different side to Southampton.
Yeah.
Because Swansea were known for playing,
passing
football. Exactly. Throw in 40 yards.
Contrast in style.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's something to look forward to. It's different. Playing Swansea, it's going to be a different experience to playing Stoke.
Yeah.
It's not all the same football thrown at you again. Yeah. Because as good as football is to watch, when it's the same over and over again, it has been for the last 2 or 3 years now.
Longer, probably.
Probably longer.
Just the Leicester season kind of...
Well,
it's a complete anomaly.
I was watching matches going back from 2000, 2003, 2004 recently. I just happened to come across extended highlights, and there was anarchy to the matches back then. Where today everything, and this is progression of the game, it's the evolution of the sport. That today everything's much more organised, everything's much more structured. You have clear paths. Like, it was structured back then as well, obviously, but there was a lot more players pulling out of position and doing things and frantic running up and down and just crazy things happening, like balls breaking in the outside the 6-yard box and players all throwing themselves at it and things like that. Today you don't see that. Today you see a very controlled defence and a very controlled defensive line, and them each trying, almost like in American football, each of them having their game plans and trying executing them for a play and seeing what would happen. And that's kind of where we are at the game. And, in contrast to like in Spain or in Italy, where again they're very regimented, very tactically aware countries and always have been, the sport is a lot more varied. Like when Malaga played Barcelona at the weekend, the bottom of the league playing the top of the league, Malaga didn't go out and try to blockade their box. Like maybe they should have, as it turned out. They lost 2-0. But they played Barcelona. They created chances. They had corners. They had, and from open play they created chances because they were like, okay, they're going to play this way. We're going to play this way to try and counter it. In England, it's, okay, we're going to play our way, which is to shut down the game. And the other team's going, we're going to play our way and shut down the game. Neither of them are actually working to beat the opposition. Very few of the managers are. Maybe Pep Guardiola, but he's more of an ideologue than almost any other manager in the Premier League.
And to be honest, he doesn't, he's very much, we'll play our game. And instead of, we'll play our game and block them out, it's we'll play our game and hog the ball so they don't have a chance to hurt us. Guardiola's football can be brilliant to watch, but it can also be a lot more defensive than people realise. Yeah. Because it takes completely the sting out of the game if he's feeling threatened.
Because it's the key to a great offense is a great defense.
Yeah.
And that is Pep Guardiola's mantra. Even if you don't see him, he plays fantastic attacking football, but he gets it from control, from not letting the opposition have the ball, not letting them have chances. You control defence, then you build from there. That's what he does.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the rest of the league is just kind of without a structure, it's cautious. It's very much every team in there, and it's growing, as we say. Like there's nothing happening in the majority of the league right now because everything's segmented. We have the top 6, and then we have the bottom 14.
Yeah.
And how many points, like West Brom are fairly cut off now, but like you said with Stoke, it's only a few years since West Brom are in European places. Yeah. And it's funny, how it's just their time. Like they're not that awful, West Brom. They have good players. They have had good performances this season, but they're just that much. They're down at the bottom of the league. Yeah. Like what were we saying at the weekend that Southampton lost 3-0 to Newcastle, a team that's close to them in the possession in the table, still not in the relegation zone. West Ham are still not in the relegation zone, aren't they?
No, West Ham are 16th.
West Ham are, and there's we didn't even talk about it, how Mark Noble had to assault a fan because he invaded the pitch, and another fan tried to do the Graham Souness and plant a flag, the corner flag, in the centre of the pitch, and
they were throwing coins at the people owners.
The directors and their families left in tears because of the way they were chanting the threats that were being made to them. The fact that West Ham have engaged with the hooligans that are who come to the matches and try to communicate with them, which is not the good way to try and get them on
yeah, like Miguel Delaney published a piece last week that was a very long piece, very thorough piece. It was absolutely fascinating what's going on at West Ham. Like they're just such a mess.
Like between the way that they secured the stadium deal with the Conservative Party in power at the time, to get the Olympic Stadium to take it on for themselves, and everything they've done since then to grow the brand of West Ham, putting London on their crest instead of Hammers or instead of Upton Park. It's a very it's betrayed a lot of what the fans think the West Ham stands for, but then at the same time, like, what are the West Ham fans doing with? Like maybe they see it's the only thing they can do, but then at the same time we're talking about the league and how homogenized and how samey it is. West Ham aren't in danger.
Yeah, like as awful as West Ham are, like if they stay up, it's really just a disgrace to the teams that finish below them.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel as well, like this is the first of all, it's definitely the wrong way to go about it, and I do agree that West Ham fans have some genuine complaints. But this, it's a complete wrong way to go about it. But a lot of that talk about building the brand, football's always been about money.
Yeah.
But that's more transparent than ever now, I feel. It's a lot easier to see. I mean, how many owners own a football club to make money? A lot of them.
Almost
A surprising amount.
Almost even Swansea at this point now. I think the majority owners are not the fans at the moment. It's
Yeah.
only 49%
Yeah,
fans.
yeah.
They were the last bastion. Like Arsenal were for a very long time fan owned. Chelsea were under Ken Bates, whatever Ken Bates was.
Chelsea were technically, that was separate.
Yeah.
Fans owned the pitch and the Ken Bates owned the club.
Yeah, so that was that was a weird situation. But yeah, like Liverpool was owned for fans until Hicks and Gillette came in. You know, the older ownership was there for fans, but like I can't even think of one club in the top flight anyway that is owned by the fans, operated in the best interest of the fans, not in the best interest of the commercial interests of the club.
Yeah, possibly Brighton, who are owned by a millionaire, but one based in Brighton, lived in the town, owns the rugby club there, and is genuinely passionate about Brighton.
Yeah,
which
but it is being run for profit. Like they did move to a new stadium for profit. They did they have sacked managers because for relating to performance, not relating to the actual football they play.
I think the Brighton's owner argument there would be they're only looking to make money to ensure the football club continues growing.
But I'm sure that's the argument that all
exactly
the clubs make to try and why did Sam Kroenke pay himself a £7 million dividend last year?
Yeah,
when he did nothing for the club.
No, but that's part of the problem. Like, the Premier League is the worst case of that as well because there's so much more money in it.
Yeah,
and
for now,
even that's sort of the best you can hope for as a Premier League fan right now. That your club's owner likes the football. That he's not just there for the money; he likes the football as well.
Yeah,
and it's just leading to a disconnect. Huge ticket prices aren't helping. I saw Nottingham Forest recently actually came in with a great move on ticket sales. Season tickets for under 12s were £10. For between 12 to 18, I think, were £50. Yeah. And for 18 to 23 were £100. And it's great to see that, local kids can watch their club, and that doesn't stop the second they turn 18. Yeah. It's still affordable for college students.
Yeah.
And important. Theoretically, that continues then once they have a job and the tickets are more expensive, they can actually afford them. Which is nice to see because at the moment, the only people who can afford them are people who come in once every now and again, so tourist fans, who absolutely have a right to be there, but, do detract from the atmosphere. Yeah. And older fans who generally have watched the club for a long time, but I mean, they're not going to be there forever.
They're dying out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the average age of a football fan is getting
aging.
Interest in football is dropping among younger people. Yeah. That's what's happening now. I don't know, is that unique to England and Ireland? Which is what we'd know best. Yeah. Possibly, that's probably different in Germany because tickets are affordable there.
Yeah.
Clubs are almost always fan owned, with one exception, RB Leipzig. Yeah. And Italy and Spain, they're 50-50 between the two.
Italy have had problems, similar problems to England with age, demographics, and getting young people into the stadia. Yeah. Like Juventus had awful problems.
Yeah,
they just they saw their age base just get very old because nobody wanted to go to Del Alpi for 20 years. Yeah. Their old stadium. That's why they built a new stadium to get young people back in, and it has worked for them to an extent. But in other places in Italy, football's an old man's game.
Yeah, and I mean, really, rugby is taking over in some places.
Yeah.
Italy definitely, rugby...
It's experienced resurgence along with other sports.
Yeah, Italy, England, rugby is apparently more and more popular amongst younger ages. Ireland, I know definitely a lot of...
It's growing,
It's definitely growing. There's just... football isn't quite as... It's the universal game. It's, the world's game. But it's not... completely unpassable.
Yeah, it's not infallible. It's not a position where it can never be overtaken.
Exactly, especially when it's so dour to watch a lot of the time. Yeah. And really, if you look back, when was the last time football had proper major rule changes?
92.
Yeah.
The offside rule and the back pass rule. Yeah.
And they're not even that.
No,
they weren't even that dramatic to the game. That did create a bit of changes, but you're going back to the 20s before then for any major changes. Yeah,
but I think the back pass rule especially improved the game to watch.
Yeah.
And I think they need to look at that again. Are there some rules we can change to make it better to watch? Because to be perfectly honest, that might be what football needs. And I know we've talked about Marco van Basten's proposals. previously.
Offside.
Ban offside.
60-minute matches.
60-minute matches.
With stop clock.
With stop clock, yeah. 2 players in a certain...
substitutes.
Extra referees and stuff.
Sectors.
No, some of them are good. Like, he kind of just brainstormed ideas.
Yeah, they're interesting to think about.
They're interesting, yeah.
And there's definitely some ways that football can be brought forward, because at the moment it's too tactical, not innovative enough. Because if you look back on what your biggest football memories, it's those little moments where a player does something brilliant.
Yeah.
Generally,
when something unexpected happens.
Exactly. Generally, that's what we love.
Less.
That's why attacking players are worth more than defensive players. Because they're the inspirational ones, and that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Eden Hazard should be the most electrifying player in the world, because he might be the most talented, but he plays that way. Every single time he gets the ball, you feel he can do something.
Yeah.
But 99% of the time, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because it's stifled, because he's got 10 players to run through, because the system, he's asked to start from too far back. It's just, it doesn't feel as special anymore. And rugby, again, I brought it up a lot because I think it's a very well-run sport. They made rule changes a year and a half ago.
They make them constantly to adapt to the game. Yeah.
And they made them a year and a half ago to change how the game works, and now it's quicker. The ball is in play a bit more because apparently, it was too stop-starty for the world governing organisation. Mm-hmm. So they decided, you know what, we change this, the ball will be in play more, it'll be, quicker.
New
fast-paced
teams rise up and other
exactly.
teams go down.
It's much higher scoring.
Yeah,
it's much higher scoring than it was. There are on average more points scored since the rule changes. On average, the ball's in play more often. It's a better game to watch.
Yeah,
that's good. That's what we want from football.
Yeah,
that's what might be what it takes to get the Premier League. Exciting again.
It'd be exciting. Yeah, we don't know. It's certainly not been exciting this year.
No, this is one of the more forgettable years, I think. But that is a good place to end the topic of the show. Join us at the end of the break for Guess the Player. Welcome back now as we close the show with Guess the Player. Matthias, you did a pretty good job explaining this a couple weeks ago. Go again.
Okay, so Declan's going to throw out a bunch of names. They are all former players. They all have a player in common. That is, they've played with a player at whatever club. So Declan knows the actual player, and I've done a terrible job explaining this.
We're going to guess the player. We're
going to guess the player.
We're going to guess the player. List the players, Declan.
Trevor Francis. I'm really happy with this one. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Marco Tardelli, Frank Stapleton, Roberto Mancini, Walter Zenga, Niall Quinn.
Okay, so it's someone...
It's Klinsmann?
It's not Klinsmann.
No, it was that to be too... He's too young. Walter Zenga. And so we're looking at probably a player who's played in Italy and played in England. Trevor Francis. Trevor Francis go to Milan at some point?
Yes, he did. Didn't he? Wasn't he the guy who talked about the Weetabix? Or the Cheerios? He had that quote.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. And apparently they went and signed, or they wanted to sign that Liverpool winger. Which Liverpool winger? I'm
not sure.
Oh, and they signed the wrong player, no?
I remember that happening with... I think there's a different... I think
maybe.
We're getting two different stories.
Give us a clue there, because
He won an FA Cup and 2 Serie A titles.
So yes, England and Italy. Okay.
FA Cup. So at that era, we're looking at who won the FA Cups in the late 70s. Arsenal 1-1, Ipswich 1-1, West Ham 1-1, Liverpool 1-1.
That's 4 teams.
Yeah, the late 70s.
Yeah.
So one of those teams. Liam Brady.
It is Liam Brady. Yeah. Well done.
Liam Brady. Yeah, so Liam Brady played with
Arsenal.
Trevor Francis. Who did he play with Trevor Francis with?
I've forgotten now.
West Ham.
It was. I think it might have been West Ham. He did play at West Ham.
He played West Ham near the end,
Yeah.
Going into Italia 90, he played at West Ham. So he played with Zenga at Juventus?
Juventus, yeah.
Yeah. He also played for Inter and he played for Samp, I think, as well. I want to say he definitely played for Inter.
Samp, yeah.
In Serie A before he returned to.
Because he was Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. It was Inter.
Well, That was an interesting one.
Yeah, I just Liam Brady popped into my head. You know, he's just what a hero, Liam Brady, on the RTE panel.
I feel that this,
forever and ever.
I feel that this guest the player was pitched a little bit too far back.
Maybe
Liam Brady though.
Yeah, that I wouldn't have gone that far back if it wasn't for Liam Brady.
It's not Liam Brady exactly. That's the problem. It's the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Well, look at some of those names there. You know, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge,
who I know for being an executive of Bayern Munich.
Exactly. You know, Niall
Fine
Quinn.
German player. Where did he
Niall
play?
Quinn.
When did he play with
for
Niall
Niall
Quinn
Quinn?
at Arsenal?
Niall Quinn's Irish.
Oh, an international. Yeah.
Niall Quinn surely couldn't be
he was.
playing before Italia 90.
He was.
Niall
He played
Quinn was
Euro 88.
he played
Was
in
he?
Euro 88,
Oh,
which
God.
Liam Brady missed through suspension, I believe.
Yeah,
Or-
and then he wasn't picked for Italia 90.
yeah. Well, he came out of retirement. Like he retired and did what Zlatan was thinking of doing. He was like, "Oh, we've qualified for the World Cup. I suppose I'll throw
They
my
should have brought him. They should
hat
have
into the
brought him.
ring."
That was a mistake not bringing him.
Right.
They got to the quarterfinals that year,
So
though.
now-
In fairness,
Now that we've recapped the end of Liam Brady's international career,
yeah. I just want
His
to
famous
honor the
quote,
man.
of course, is if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
Was that?
That was
Liam
when he
Brady
was
did not
Celtic
invent
manager.
Surely
but
that was
he
around
said
before
it,
that.
Oh, it was.
Okay,
but
yes.
he said it in the post-match interview. Was saying, what if something had happened during the match?
this is what we're missing in the Premier League these
You know?
days.
Yeah.
Oh,
that,
yeah,
that
definitely.
character of Liam Brady.
I still believe we've yet to replace Louis van Gaal.
We've yet to replace original Mourinho.
True.
I feel like Louis van Gaal is the best
Best we've had since.
character we've seen in
Well,
a
he did
long
dive
time.
on the touchline last season.
That was
against Arsenal.
that was one of my
That
that
was
was one
what
of the
you were
best
thinking of.
moments
Yeah.
in a season that had a lot of them, because that was the year Leicester won the league.
Yeah, it was.
But that will do us for the show this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you two for being here.
Thank you.
Email us at the tfpod@gmail.com and follow us on social media at the tfpod. Please subscribe, rate and review at whatever podcast provider you use, and spread the word about the show to friends and family, or just your neighbour or whatever.
Literally anybody.
Your homeless man on the street, you know, cheer him up.
Tell Joe. If you know Joe.
Yeah,
Tell Joe.
if you know Joe, yeah, or Mark. Tell
Hi,
him.
Mark.
Yeah, what's up, Mark? This is for you, Mark. And so once again, thank you, the two of you.
Thank you again, Declan.
Thank you for listening.